There's something about pushing it almost to a painful level that I think gives them a great deal of satisfaction. Most designers today do some drawings or have people that do drawings and have someone that makes the model. Alex does every model we've ever produced. He does all the original pieces, but they're all conceived directly in the wax that he carves. The perfection stops only with a magnification. What he does is he presses the perfection to a level that the human eye can't really attain, and then he backs away and looks at the finished piece. And often I find a lot of his work so fascinating under the microscope because there's whole stories, there's secret things hidden in there. He reads a lot, and he reads in 5 different languages. He speaks 7 languages. His mother once said to me about his head size. He has an extremely large head. He has to have custom hats, and he loves hats. She said a pot that big can't be empty. They do art institutes in Lithuania like we do medical schools here. You have to be proficient and knowledgeable in all aspects, not just one. You can't run off and be a sculptor or a painter. You have to do it all, and you have to know it all, and then your 6th year they'll let you go do what you want. When his was small sculptures, which then became jewelry, and the jewelry expanded. So he started by mastering the technique of carving the stone, then inlaying the metal, and they looked like they were meant to be sculptural, but they turned out to be more like brooches. He did a lot of pins and pendants. I mean, nothing was a big deal. It was like he handed him an invisible set ruby bracelet from Van Cleef & Arpels. He'd never seen one before. And he says, "Let me try and fix it." Made me a little nervous. He just handmade parts, cut the rubies by hand, fit them. He goes, "Is this all right?" He just had an unbelievable hand. The hammers we make ourselves here, they're special because most hammers you use in the jewelry business, the tip reciprocates on the piece. Ours are like a hammer and chisel. The tip stays on the piece, and the weight is up in the handle and hits the chisel just like a hammer and a chisel. That makes a huge difference when it comes to control of straight line circles. There are none out there like that, so Alex decided to make those himself. There's probably 12 different tips that cause different textures, either polished, round, cupped. Then there's techniques that use a wire brush that has to be turned at a certain torque very slowly. And that's why we always tell people, do not have anyone work on these pieces except our shop. And at least once a month, some pieces shipped in here with tears on the letter saying, "Why is my ring ruined?" Well, you took it to a guy down the street and he can't replicate the finishes. There'll be a certain ring. It just appealed to people on such a primal level. It was so interesting. The opposite's true too. He'll make this beautiful bracelet. No one will touch it for 2 years, and then suddenly after 2 years, it's the hottest thing we ever made. Like, I don't know what it is. There's some energy that comes off of it or something. When I list the customers that we have, it's always interesting because they're always like really bright people, like Melinda Gates. She likes the stuff because it's understated, subtle, but she knows that he put a lot into it. Store owners who've been selling his work for years are like, "Why don't you give us old Alex?" And he's like, "You asked me for new work, I give you new work, and you want old Alex." And then 2 years later, they love new Alex, but it's really hard on him because he works so hard on it, and they just want to ignore sometimes the new stuff and live in the past. When he does public appearances, when people approach him with that groupie glaze in their eyes, and they tell him they've been waiting 5 years to meet him, and they just want to shake his hand, freaks him out a little. He's like, "No, that's not the point. He always says, jewelry is so unnecessary, therefore I have the freedom to make anything I want. And if you enjoy it, great. But when they get all serious on him, like you're a genius and you're this and that, he's like, stop it. It's just fun, just plain fun."